Breaking confirmation in the early hours of the morning at approximately 2 Kong. The approval of $2,000 tariff rebate checks is now official. Just moments ago, in a development that caught Washington and millions of Americans completely off guard, the White House confirmed a major late-night decision. In a move rarely seen, the president quietly signed off on a revised structure for the $2,000 tariff rebate checks, turning weeks of speculation into confirmed direction. There was no big speech, no headline celebration, no long briefing to prepare the public. Instead, the confirmation slipped through internal Treasury notifications, the kind that usually surface only when something has already moved from discussion into action. And for seniors across the country, especially those living on fixed incomes, this may be far more significant than it first appears. Behind the silence, something meaningful shifted. Now, before we go any further, let me slow down and introduce myself, because clarity matters here. My name is Susan Harper. For more than 10 years, I've worked side by side with retirees, widows, caregivers, and couples stepping into life after 60. My passion has always been simple: helping seniors protect their savings, feel secure, and make financial choices without fear. My goal in this conversation is not to hype anything or rush you into worry. I'm here to walk with you calmly, carefully, and honestly, so you know what changed, why it matters, and what you do and do not need to do next. So, let's take this one step at a time together. What happened overnight wasn't just the confirmation of a dollar amount. The deeper shift took place behind the scenes. Treasury officials reviewed new data, and that data confirms something many seniors already feel every time they open the refrigerator, refill a prescription, or pay the electric bill. Fixed incomes simply do not stretch the way they used to. The original design of this program focused heavily on workers and middle-income households affected by rising tariffs. But the revised documents revealed a quiet restructuring, one that finally recognizes that older Americans, especially those depending on monthly benefit checks, are absorbing inflation faster than most people realize. This wasn't announced loudly because it wasn't political theater. It was administrative permission, a green light signaling movement from planning into execution, and that matters. Here's what this really means in simple language. The rebate program is funded through money collected from import tariffs, not through traditional stimulus bills. That distinction is important because tariff revenue already exists. The Treasury does not need an entirely new vote in Congress every time eligibility is adjusted. Once the categories are defined and approved, the machinery can move. And last night, that machinery took a meaningful, quiet step forward, with seniors moved closer to the front of the review process, not as an afterthought, but as a recognition of vulnerability. But let's stay grounded. This does not mean instant payments. It does not mean everyone automatically qualifies, and it does not mean dates are guaranteed. What it does mean is that the people with the least financial flexibility, the ones juggling groceries, utilities, and medical costs on the same limited check each month, are finally being considered earlier instead of later. As someone who has sat across countless kitchen tables listening to stories of worry, sacrifice, and quiet strength, I can tell you this: acknowledgement matters, being seen matters, and that's what changed here. So as we walk through the rest of this together, I want you to feel steady. There is movement, but there is no need to panic, rush, or chase rumors. We'll keep going slowly, clearly, and with care. When people first hear rebate checks approved, it can sound like something brand new suddenly appeared out of nowhere. But the truth is quieter and more practical. This program didn't fall out of the sky. It's tied to tariff revenue, meaning money that was already being collected from imported goods entering the country. Instead of creating a brand new stimulus plan with a long political fight, the Treasury has been working within an existing structure. And that matters because when something fits inside a structure that already exists, it has fewer hurdles to clear. There are still reviews, there are still safeguards, but the path is shorter than starting from scratch. That is part of why last night's confirmation felt different. It wasn't an announcement designed for applause. It was a signal that the internal approvals had matured enough for the next phase to begin. Now, I want to say this gently because it's important to understand. A green light inside the Treasury does not mean checks are being printed tomorrow. Think of it more like a train finally moving from the station after sitting on the tracks for a long time. First, eligibility models finish running. Then, records are matched. Then, payment methods get verified. Only after those pieces line up does the distribution process begin. And if you're sitting at home wondering, so, where do I fit in? That's completely normal. My role here is to help you breathe through the uncertainty while giving you the clearest picture possible. No wild promises, no exaggerated timelines, just the truth delivered with care. So, why did seniors suddenly move closer to the front of that line? Honestly, not because of politics, and not because someone wanted headlines. The reason is much simpler and much more human. The new reports showed something the numbers could no longer hide. Seniors were carrying more pressure than expected, and they were running out of space to adjust. Groceries crept higher, utilities quietly rose, copays nudged upward. Even small increases began stacking like bricks on top of one another. And while working families sometimes have the ability to pick up an extra shift, drive rideshare, or find part-time income, retirees often don't have that option. Their income is fixed. Their budget is already trimmed. There isn't much left to cut. I've seen this up close so many times over the past decade. A widow stretching her blood pressure medication because she's worried the refill will hit before the next deposit. A couple deciding which bill to pay today and which one can wait until next week. Seniors quietly skipping outings or turning down visits simply because gas feels like a luxury. None of that shows up in campaign speeches, but it shows up plainly in data. And eventually, even the most technical analysts can't ignore it. That's what shifted. Instead of simply asking who qualifies, decision makers began asking a different question. Who has the least room to recover if we wait? And when that question changed, priorities changed with it. Not to reward one group over another, but to recognize vulnerability, to recognize that retirement for many people is not a season of comfort. It's a balancing act. So the review process was rebuilt to better reflect real life. Seniors, especially those depending largely on federal benefits, are no longer quietly standing at the back of the line by default. They are being seen earlier, evaluated sooner, and considered with more care. That doesn't guarantee instant results. It doesn't guarantee uniform timing, but it does mean someone finally acknowledged that financial pressure in retirement feels different and deserves a different level of attention. So if you're listening right now and thinking at least someone finally understands, I want you to know that feeling is valid. This isn't about promising the world. It's about recognizing the weight you've been quietly carrying and making sure the system stops pretending it isn't there. As Treasury reshaped the program, they didn't simply tax seniors onto the end of an existing list. They rebuilt the review process itself, and they did it in a way designed to move those with the least flexibility closer to the front. Instead of treating every household exactly the same, they created what I like to think of as priority lanes. Not to complicate the system and not to play favorites, but to better match real financial pressure with review timing. In the original setup, the assumption was that working households would feel the fastest shock from tariffs. So they received earlier attention, but the new reports painted a very different picture. Seniors, especially low-income seniors, were actually being squeezed sooner and harder than expected. So the model shifted. In simple terms, here's how that shift works. There's a first lane, the priority lane, designed for people who have the least purchasing power and the smallest financial cushion. Many of the seniors who live mainly on Social Security, supplemental security income, or disability benefits fall into this category. These files tend to move through review faster, not because anyone labeled them more deserving, but because the system now recognizes that a $40 jump in groceries or a sudden medical bill can throw everything off balance very quickly when income doesn't move. Then there's a second lane, These households still qualify, but they have slightly more room to manage expenses temporarily. Their reviews continue, just at a steadier pace. And finally, there's a third lane for situations that require more verification, higher incomes, or mismatched records. One of the quiet advantages seniors have in this system is stability. Many of you have had the same direct deposit account for years, the same benefit source, the same monthly pattern. That means your information often matches government records cleanly. When the data lines up, the review moves faster because there is less detective work to do. But I want to be very honest about something because honesty builds trust. Being in a priority lane does not mean the payment appears overnight. Priority simply means earlier attention, not instant results. There may still be pauses, corrections, or questions along the way, and that is perfectly normal. Now, naturally, one of the biggest questions rising up across living rooms and kitchen tables right now is simple. Where do I fit in this picture? And that's such a fair question to ask. From what the internal guidance suggests, the earliest focus leans towards seniors whose household income is built primarily around federal benefits. That includes people receiving Social Security retirement benefits, supplemental security income, disability benefits, or survivor benefits. These are households where nearly every dollar already has a job: medication, food, utilities, transportation, and where unexpected increases don't just squeeze the budget. They erase what little breathing room was left. Income ranges appear to play a role, but again, not in a way designed to judge, only to identify vulnerability. Many of the most financially stressed seniors fall under roughly $30,000 per year in total income. Within that group, those receiving less than about $1,300 a month were flagged as especially stretched, and when monthly income dips closer to $1,100 or below, the system views that level as highly sensitive, not as a label, but as a recognition that life at that number leaves almost no margin at all. But here's something important many people miss. It isn't only about income. Treasury also began weighing stability, meaning whether your income can grow or change. Seniors by nature don't usually have the same ability to add shifts, negotiate salaries, or find new work quickly. A fixed benefit is a blessing in predictability, but it's limiting when prices jump. And that difference matters now. The model finally reflects that reality. Another quiet factor that can help is something called Fast Verify. Many seniors fall into this category simply because their identity details, benefit records, and income information already live inside federal systems and rarely change. When everything is already on file and consistent, there's less paperwork, less back and forth, and fewer obstacles. That doesn't guarantee timing, but it can smooth the road. Still, I want to say this with compassion and clarity. Being closer to the front doesn't mean everyone moves at the same speed. Two seniors may have similar incomes and still experience different processing times because of something as simple as an address change, a bank update, or an old record that needs correction. If that happens, it isn't a punishment. It's just the system trying to make sure everything is accurate before money moves. So, as we talk through all of this, remember the shift wasn't about creating winners and losers. It was about finally acknowledging vulnerability and designing a review process that sees seniors not as numbers, but as people whose financial stability deserves careful thought and respect. And that recognition, even if it arrives quietly, is meaningful. One of the most comforting pieces of this entire update is something many people don't realize at first. For most seniors, there is nothing special you need to rush out and apply for. There is no secret website. There is no early sign-up list. And there is certainly no limited spot enrollment. The strength of this program is that it leans heavily on information the government already has: Social Security records, IRS files, benefit databases. That means eligibility reviews are happening quietly in the background without requiring seniors to chase paperwork. And honestly, I'm grateful for that. Over the years, I've seen how easily new programs create confusion, mistakes, and anxiety. This one was intentionally designed to avoid that. Now, There are a few situations where you might see a request to confirm something, and these are completely normal. If you've moved recently, changed banks, closed an account, or if your records don't match exactly across systems, the government may ask you to verify. But here's the key. Any legitimate request will show up only in secure official portals, like your IRS online account or your My Social Security account, not through random emails, not through text messages that appear out of nowhere, and definitely not from someone calling you on the phone demanding information. If anyone reaches out asking for your full Social Security number, banking password, gift cards, or an activation fee, that is not the government. That is a scam. Hang up. Pause. Ask someone you trust before doing anything. You deserve protection, not pressure. The best step you can take right now is simple and calm. When you have time, log into your official portals and make sure your mailing address and direct deposit information are current. Check for typos. Make sure the account on file is still the one you use. Small inaccuracies are often the reason payments get delayed or rerouted. Updating now without stress, without rushing, can save weeks of waiting later. Beyond that, there is nothing extra to chase. No race, no deadline, just awareness and patience. And naturally, the question I hear most often, sometimes whispered, sometimes worried, is, Susan, when will the money actually arrive? I appreciate that question because it comes from a place of hope mixed with uncertainty. But the honest answer requires patience. What happened in the early morning wasn't a button being pressed to instantly send out checks. It was the approval that allows the system to move forward. Think of it like a long puzzle being assembled piece by piece. First, the eligibility models finish running. Then, the system matches records across multiple databases to ensure accuracy. After that, payment methods, whether direct deposit or mailed checks, are confirmed. Only when those steps align does the payment process begin. That means in many cases you may notice movement before you ever see money. Things like notifications, confirmation messages, or status updates inside federal portals. That's normal. Progress often shows up as quiet digital footsteps long before it arrives in the bank. Some seniors may see updates earlier simply because their records are cleaner, simpler, and easier to verify. Others may take longer because of something small, an old address, a closed account, a name change, or a mismatch in records. Delays don't necessarily mean denial. They usually just mean the system is being cautious. And frankly, when money is involved, caution is a good thing. I know waiting can feel heavy, especially when budgets already feel stretched thin. But I want you to remember something important. Slow movement does not mean no movement. Often, the most meaningful financial changes happen quietly, long before they're visible. What matters most right now is staying informed, watching patiently, and refusing to let worry steal your peace. In the meantime, you have carried bigger challenges than this. You've weathered harder seasons than this, and you don't have to carry this one with fear. Another question that has been coming up again and again, and I completely understand why, is whether receiving this rebate could somehow hurt your regular benefits. And I want to walk through that slowly because peace of mind matters here. The $2,000 rebate is not considered wages. It is not treated as earned income. It isn't designed like a benefit adjustment, and it isn't meant to replace anything you already receive. It is categorized as a rebate, connected to tariff revenue, which places it outside of the normal formulas used to calculate Social Security, supplemental security income, or disability programs. In plain language, it should not reduce your Social Security check. It shouldn't trigger a sudden review of your benefits. It shouldn't interfere with cost of living increases. And it is not intended to reopen your file simply because you received it. For seniors on supplemental security income, I know the worry feels even heavier. SSI has strict limits, and sometimes even a small financial change can feel risky. The guidance makes it clear that the rebate itself is not counted as typical ongoing income for those calculations. However, and I always believe in being realistic with you, if a large amount sits untouched for a long period, it can begin to matter in certain asset-based evaluations. That's why the quiet, practical advice being shared makes so much sense. Use the relief thoughtfully. Apply it toward essentials. Keep your life stable rather than letting the money create anxiety. Food, utilities, medical costs, overdue bills, repairs. These are the kinds of things the program was meant to support. And something else I want you to know, because fear spreads fast online, receiving this rebate does not put a target on your back. It does not automatically invite audits. The eligibility review happens before the payment ever reaches you. Once you are approved, the intention is to help reduce pressure, not create new problems. Sometimes clarity itself is the greatest gift we can offer each other, and I want you to feel that clarity here. So then the natural question becomes, all right, Susan, what should I actually be doing right now? And the answer, thankfully, is far simpler than many people expect. The most important thing you can do is make sure your information is accurate. If you have an IRS online account or a My Social Security account, take a few minutes when you're comfortable and log in. Look at your mailing address. Look at your direct deposit information. Make sure everything matches your current details. A closed bank account, an old address, or a small typo can slow things down more than anything else. Beyond that, there is no race. There is no extra form hiding somewhere. There is no deadline that requires panic. Check your portals occasionally, not obsessively. Stay aware, but don't let this consume your peace. And please stay alert to anyone who tries to take advantage of this situation. No legitimate agency will call demanding your full Social Security number, your banking login, gift cards, or fees to unlock your payment. If someone pressures you, threatens you, or says they can get you approved faster for money, that is not the government. That is a scam, and you deserve to be protected from it. One of the healthiest things you can do right now is simply prepare thoughtfully. Ask yourself, if this relief arrives, what will help me breathe easier? For many seniors, that means catching up on bills, filling prescriptions without stress, fixing something at home that has been put off, or simply stabilizing the basics so each month doesn't feel like a balancing act. When money has a purpose, it creates calm. When it sits with fear and uncertainty around it, it creates anxiety. My hope is that this brings a little calm back into the conversation. And most importantly, give yourself permission to exhale. This process may feel slow, it may feel quiet, but slow progress is still progress. Staying steady, informed, and patient matters more than anything else right now. You've lived through enough financial storms to know that clarity, not panic, is what carries us through. As we come a little closer to the heart of this conversation, I want to slow down with you for a moment. Because this isn't only about numbers, eligibility charts, or government systems. It's also about what so many seniors have quietly carried for years. Rising prices have a way of creeping into everyday life in ways outsiders don't always see. It's choosing the generic brand when the name brand used to be fine. It's turning the thermostat down a little lower than feels comfortable. It's spacing out appointments, delaying repairs, stretching things that really shouldn't be stretched. And often it's doing all of that silently because you don't want to worry your children and you don't want to feel like a burden. I've heard that tone in voices across kitchen tables and phone calls, that mixture of strength and quiet exhaustion. That's why this shift matters. Not because $2,000 solves everything, it doesn't, but because it represents acknowledgement, a simple recognition that retirement shouldn't feel like a constant fight to keep up, that the people who worked hard, raised families, paid taxes, and built the communities around us deserve dignity and breathing room. When policymakers finally looked past the spreadsheets and saw the lived reality of fixed income life, something softened. And even though it arrived without speeches or spotlights, that recognition still carries meaning. If you felt unseen, if you've ever wondered whether anyone notices the sacrifices you make, I want you to know you are not invisible. You are not complaining. You're navigating a financial world that changed faster than your income did. And that's not your failure. That's the landscape changing around you. My hope every time I sit down to share conversations like this is to help you feel steadier, more informed, and less alone as things continue to unfold. And as we gently move toward closing our time together today, I want to leave you with something simple and grounding. If this discussion helped you feel even a little more confident, I'm truly grateful. That's why I do this. Not to scare you, not to promise miracles, but to walk beside you with clarity and calm. And if you found peace here, there's a good chance another senior out there could use the same reassurance. If you feel comfortable, liking or sharing this video helps more people find information without fear. And that matters more than algorithms or numbers. I'd also love to hear from you because your wisdom truly matters. What's one money habit, lesson, or truth you wish you had learned sooner? Maybe it's saving differently. Maybe it's not helping everyone else at the expense of yourself. Maybe it's asking questions earlier instead of feeling embarrassed. Whatever it is, sharing it may help someone who is walking the road right behind you, someone who feels the same worry you once felt. Your experience isn't just a story, it's guidance. And as always, I'll continue watching this situation carefully, reading updates, and translating them into clear language so you never feel lost in the noise. Whenever there is real, meaningful movement, I'll be right here, calmly breaking things down step by step with honesty and care. Until then, take a breath. Stay patient, stay informed, and remember, you deserve stability, respect, and peace in this season of life.